House of the Dragon, episode 8 of House of the Dragon, titled The Lord of the Tides, aired this past Sunday. We have been reviewing the show every single week. TJ, what are your thoughts on episode 8 of House of the Dragon?
This show is so good. Texted you yesterday after I finally watched the episode. I said the Hightower / Targaryen children suck. They suck. We all know that. This
I agree.
episode just a little bit more. But yeah, I thought it was a fantastic episode. Like I said last week, Game of Thrones, I feel like known for their second last episodes being bangers of a season. And this was no different, of course. Patty Constantine fully deserved Emmy right there. I thought he 100%. Was fantastic.
Would you say his best episode?
Oh, yeah. No doubt. The special effects were also great. I just like to shout out to HBO for the special effects. Thought they looked fantastic as well. And I'm excited to see, what this whole battle is. I know a lot of people so the whole Dance of the Dragons thing, right? That's what it's called. Is just based on a misunderstanding, which is true. I mean, but I'm really happy with how this season is looking like it's going to end. I'm thrilled. I thought this was probably my favorite episode, I'll say, of the season.
Yeah, I feel like this show just has, favorite episode itis, if you want to call it that. I just, at every opportunity, it's just, oh wow, this episode really just stepped things up. I think this might be my favorite episode, over and over and over again. Like last week, Driftmark, I was like, wow, so emotional, so many things, so many different, allegiances and, different issues and everything. Vaemond giving that super shady eulogy, and then Daemon's little chuckle and everything. Thought last week was just incredible. And then this week, they just, in my eyes, just top it again, which I just increasingly realize I just should not doubt this show, because they are just absolutely knocking it out of the park at every opportunity. Again, I agree with you. I think that this was easily Patty Considine's best episode for sure. I thought that what he did as King Viserys in this episode, not only just the acting, but the physical acting, like how he was actually moving, was fantastic. I thought was great. And then also Olivia Cook, just in moments, having to pull out those kind of high notes that she has to hit of, kind of insanity and desperateness, but also the quieter moments. And we do see, towards the end here, a possible rekindling of mending of old wounds. But of course, it is not built to last in the Seven Kingdoms, unfortunately.
Built to last about 10 minutes.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and just jump right into full spoilers for this thing. And unfortunately, as we know, this episode was where we said goodbye to King Viserys the First. After 8 fantastic episodes, he got the middle ground of Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark. Robert went out in episode 7, Ned in episode 9, so we lose Viserys in episode 8 of season 1. The ending of this show, man, of this episode, I'll tell you, last week for me, it was emotional, but I said in my quick review that I put out on Sunday, this was the first episode that it actually moved me to tear up. Not full crying, but in 2 different places. One was when Daemon comes and helps. Well, first of all, that actual scene where the doors swing open and Viserys comes back into, the hall to take up the Iron Throne, and just the way that.
How about that? look at Otto just sitting on the throne, acting like he's the king. You know.
I know. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Viserys is like, get off my throne. What are you doing? Like,
Yeah, he
what
said,
are you
"I
doing?
will
Who do you
take."
think you are? You're the hand. You are the hand. And I brought you back, by the way. You know, I dismissed you before,
Yeah, I
and then
didn't
I
have
brought
to.
you back. Yeah, I
Only
didn't
because
have to
that
bring
guy
you back,
killed
but
his
I did.
family.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, go sit somewhere else. Don't sit on my throne.
Yeah, I mean, he tries to I love to real quick. I will say, I love the way that was shot with just all these different takes, but just this extended sequence of just in real time him walking all the way to the throne. I felt like, and I gotta know if you felt the same way. I felt like watching that scene of him walking through the hall, through everybody, and then trying to go up those steps, and then what happens with the crown happens, which we can even save for talk about in a minute from now. But just the actual walk, and then him struggling up the steps, I felt like I was him. I felt the come on, I felt the frustration of not being able to just get up there and sit down. You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't even do that, and it was just 4 episodes ago that he was, kicking Daemon on the ground and, beating him up and screaming over him and saying, did you do this? Whatever. He was just, all of his physicality is just gone. And he's just this shell of who he used to be. And it was just so emotional. But how did you kind of feel about that scene of Viserys' kind of his WrestleMania moment, if you will?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And obviously, the Daemon one was also great. In the same scene, but seeing him walk down half, and we don't see that he's lost his eye, correct? Until the dinner,
until
right?
Later.
We don't know that's happened
because he's got a bandage on his head,
right? So that was very kind of startling to me when he walks in with this mask on. Even though I've seen screenshots and stuff like that, I was like, oh, he's really he's just decaying basically.
Yeah, it was way worse than I thought, and of course I saw that picture of him in the mask.
I was like this. I was like, it literally reminds me. Gus Fring walking out of the room after the bomb's gone off. Basically, that's what it reminded me of. But yeah, I thought that was again acting master class from Patty Constantine. I thought, like you, I could really feel kind of the struggle to get up the stairs. I literally could just do this however many years ago, 5-10 years ago, whatever it was. And he's been fighting this a long time. He probably should have died maybe 10 years ago.
Honestly.
But he was still kicking. One thing I will say, and I said this to you multiple times. We really focused on what he was drinking this episode. And I know it was what was it called? Seed of the
Milk poppy, of the Poppy.
Right, and that is brought up in Game of Thrones, correct, at some point?
Yeah.
Okay, what is that exactly? Because I was like, he's drinking something. I was like, this is not tea.
I think it's just supposed to be like ibuprofen.
See,
but it just helps with pain. And then
the way I took his drinking was him drinking that was that when Rhaenyra and Daemon saw what he was drinking, they didn't seem very happy. And the way I took that is he's drinking something that's not necessarily helping him.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely. I think this is what I think. I think that Otto, in his own way, he definitely wants power and control for himself.
Right.
But I think he definitely does love Viserys in a we used to be friends. It's probably not as friendly as obviously they were once. But, I think he genuinely does care for the king. And then I think, obviously, I think Alicent does love him and obviously cares about him. But I do think that she does genuinely love him. But I think it's just Otto and Alicent's answer to it of just keep him in bed and keep him drinking Milk of the Poppy all day. Keep him there, whatever. So I think you're right. I think it was Milk of the Poppy, but I think that Daemon and Rhaenyra are smelling it going how much of this shit are they having this guy on? He's doped out of his mind. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. So I think to them just walking in and seeing him like that, kind of all drugged up, I think they were. They probably were, you know, what the hell are you doing to this guy? And then Viserys even makes that decision, which, you know, I think it's one of those things that we see in this episode that he just basically chose that he was ready to let go after having that dinner with everybody together. Because he tells Otto that morning, he says, you know, no, I don't want to drink any today. Like he's just going to live with the pain type of thing, because you can tell he is in a genuine amount of pain. And I liked too that he had all these physical issues, but aside from just struggling and dealing through the pain, his mind was still there. Like his mind was still fully there all the way up till the end. You know, like I said, aside from having the pain or being kind of out of it, like, you know, passing out or something, he was still himself and everything. And I love that they did that as well. What do you think?
No, agreed. I think, you know, we really don't see him kind of totally lose it. I feel like until the end. I feel like that's when he's kind of pretty much gone, and obviously he is gone at the end. But yeah, I think overall, like for the most part throughout the episode, he's pretty sane. I just want to pivot real quick. Well, actually, I don't want to get off like the whole Damon you know.
Well, just go whatever.
One real quick thing I'll say just about this episode that maybe I just would have liked a little bit more of, that, you know, we kind of got, but we didn't get really, like, there wasn't any closure to it. Is Aegon. So he basically, you know, rapes this
servant,
what do they call
handmaiden, handmaiden or whatever,
and, you know, she's given the drink that I'm assuming is basically like a plan B. And then, you know, we see Allison go into his room, yell at him, and then we don't really get him. He doesn't show up again. He doesn't even show up at the dinner later. So
no, he's at the dinner.
Is he?
Yeah.
Which one is he?
He's the one with the shorter hair.
Oh, I think he just looks different.
Well, yeah,
he looks different than. Yeah, he just look that actor looks like way different than what I.
Yeah, that's the only one.
The other actor being.
I think that both Ty Tennant, who played him in I think the last two episodes, in the last two episodes, I think was fantastic. But I do think that this new guy too, I think that he's really good in the role as well. I just think overall, I think that was probably the most jarring acting change that they've had. Just because he just looks very different. I know that he's not, but it almost feels like Ty Tennant seemed like taller than even this new guy is, as if Aegon shrank, which I don't think he did. But
that is what
he just looks very different.
Like,
yeah. I definitely agree with you on that.
So yeah, and there's a lot. There's a lot of names. It's really hard to keep track of. I like forget how many Targaryens there are.
The whole issue at the end of the episode is because there's 3 Aegons.
Literally, yes. Right, literally. So that was my one thing, but again, if he's at the dinner, that's fine. How about that Damon Targaryen rebirth, I want to say. Just completely flipping probably literally every person that has watched the show. You know, maybe at first kind of being against him, you know, rightfully so, and then just doing this complete 180. And I would say the majority of people, probably everybody, is on that side. What did you think of his role? Yeah, of his role in this whole episode.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Like you said, I think really you got it a little bit in last week's episode with him dealing with the fallout of Laena's death, but really in this past 6 years, when he's with Rhaenyra, he's in Dragonstone, he's raising her kids, his kids, their kids together now. You know, they got 7 kids in that. Yeah, they have 7 kids. Jesus. But and apparently, according to some reviewers, there are even more kids to come. It's gonna be huge. You know, 17 dragons need 17 dragon riders. But I thought that Daemon was fantastic. I think that this episode really showed his maturation as a man and as a character and what he wants to be. I mean, you go back to episode 1, which at this point was 21 years ago. In the timeline, it's been 21 years since he was banished numero uno. And you just see how hot-headed he was and how much he reveled in the violence of the tournament and all this stuff. And in this, he's ready. And even in last week, Viserys begs him. He says, come back home with me. He says, come back home. Join me, in King's Landing. We'll be together. We can, take this time. And then he has that moment where he's like, I don't need, anything. I'm I don't need it. And he's still got that kind of rebellious, like, I don't need your help, big brother type of thing. And then finally in this episode, when he drops the crown and then Daemon comes up to help him, which Michelle pointed out in the chat, yeah, they did talk about the crown wasn't even supposed to fall off his head. That was something that happened on one of the takes. And then they just kept going. Yeah, they just kept going with it.
Oh.
And then they were like, this is amazing. So then they reshot it and made it like this big dramatic sequence and everything.
Cool.
Which I thought doing that on the fly was crazy, because for me that was one of the best sequences of the whole episode. He goes to take the first step, Kingsguard comes up and no, I don't want it. And then drops the crown and he goes again. You see the sword come up and you're like, oh, somebody's trying to help him again. And he's like, go. I said no. And then he looks up. And when you see Patty see Matt Smith, it's like, I was just like, oh, damn. And then I think Daemon says something like, come on. Like, kind of, I'll carry you the rest of the way type of thing. It was a real sad, like, moment of brotherhood, because it's like he's finally ready to help him, to have this, relationship with him, and it's the last day that they're ever gonna have together. It was just like emotional as hell, and Matt Smith was so good, and obviously Daemon had another very big moment in this episode, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So much to unpack this episode. But to go back to the core of your question, just with Daemon, I just thought that he was fantastic. And I think, too, I really like kind of that the opening sequence. We see the mountain on Dragonstone, and he's kind of doing his little, spelunking and cave diving to retrieve eggs, presumably for the coming conflict, to make sure that they can have as many dragons for all their kids as they can. So I thought that was really cool. As well as see him kind of adventuring, but yeah, I thought that Daemon's fantastic. But let's move on to kind of the other half of what this episode was about, which the title suggests, the Lord of the Tides. So basically, this episode came down to Vaemond Valerian challenging Lucerys Valerian, Rhaenyra's son, for the claim to the throne of Driftmark, because our guy, one of our favorites, Corlys, wounded in battle, completely absent from this episode, but his name and his presence was kind of the inciting incident of the entire episode, even though he wasn't in it. So yeah, what were your kind of thoughts on this? And then we obviously get this great opening scene with Rhaenys, showing that she's been kind of the interim ruler on Driftmark. But Vaemond is saying, like, if my brother dies, I'm taking this throne for myself, because I'm not letting those two, abominations take my house, which is, crazy.
Yeah.
But what are your kind of thoughts on all this Vaemond stuff, plotting with Otto and Alicent? So as good as his intentions he says it is, it's all about them getting the power still. Even Rhaenys says to Rhaenyra, if this goes their way, the High Towers will strike their first blow today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that he tried to do it, because, as you said, it is his house, it's his name, and at this point, again, with everybody except for Viserys, they all know that that's they're technically not blood. But at the same time, I forget who says it. It might be last episode but somebody says like, oh, it's what's his name? Who's the main ruler? Who's his brother? Sorry,
Corlys.
Corlys. Yeah, I think Corlys says that nobody remembers blood; they remember names.
Yeah, great line.
And I think that really showed again in this episode. His brother's trying to say like, hey, they're not blood, but at the end of the day, it's that's not what we're remembering. And again, everybody knows that they're not blood, but it doesn't matter. And I don't know about you, but did your jaw just drop at that moment in
when what happens
in the throne room? Yeah, when that happens.
Let's talk about let's back it up to the moments before, because this guy, let me see if I can get the shot of him.
That was a great scene.
Yeah, there he is. That's all right. We're going to build up to that because I just love that image. Yeah, so you get Vaemond kind of stating his case, as we talked about earlier. Otto is going to sit the throne and clearly throw it in Vaemond's favor. They met up, shadily beforehand and everything. But then we get the epic entrance. Viserys says, I'll sit the throne today. Comes to Rhaenyra's aid one more time. Blah, 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 blah. Gets to Vaemond's testimony time. And basically, he realizes that with Viserys sitting on the throne, he's done. He's got no shot. Viserys is not going to take it away from Lucerys. We're still wondering, what is Rhaenys going to do? Because she tells Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra says, hey, back me up, back my kid up, and I'll wed my sons to your granddaughters. That way, whatever offspring they have, they're going to be Valyrian regardless. You know what I mean? That's the other thing, too, is that, sure,
that's
Luke
true,
and Jace
nice little loophole
are
there.
not. Yeah, Luke and Jace are not Valyrian. We know that, but, like Corlys says, blood, or, names over blood. But either way, actual Valyrian blood will be in their children. So, like you said, nice little loophole there. But we still don't know where she's going to land on this. So Vaemond is going, kind of off about this whole thing because he realizes that he's kind of lost. And Daemon just has this great look when Vaemond just kind of looks over and snaps at, Rhaenyra, and Daemon just goes, say it. Just goes, say it. Does the little chin nod. And then, I gotta find his name. I think it's Will Stanton, that plays Vaemond. Oh gosh, I gotta get his name because he was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it doesn't have his name on there, but Will Johnson. There you go. He just absolutely went for it today and just unleashes this. Her children are bastards. It just screams, and then he follows it up. If that wasn't bad enough, he follows it up with, and she is a whore. And it was just insane. And now I gotta pull this picture up for you guys, because my guy is on death's door, and he popped up to defend his daughter. He pulled out that knife and he said, I will cut your goddamn tongue out if you like. And then the camera cuts back to Vaemond, and then Vaemond's head is no more, and it reveals Daemon is standing behind him and has just absolutely sliced Vaemond's head clean off. Well, actually, right above the tongue.
Right above, yeah.
Yeah, Viserys says, I'll have your tongue for that. And then Daemon goes, he can keep his tongue, puts the sword back in. Absolutely incredible moment. But yeah, we talked a little bit about it, but what was your reaction? What was just your thought to that absolutely insane moment?
I mean, when he said those two things, I was like, oh, like, I can't believe he just said that, like, right in front of Varys. And then when he was killed, my jaw dropped. I was like, I did
just
not
so
see
quick.
that coming.
I had
just
no
with
idea.
That brutality too.
Yeah,
like they show him getting his head chopped in half. I was like, oh my gosh. And even like even when after that scene they go when they're like preparing the body and they're showing the body with like the whole body and then the head,
the space, and then the head.
Space. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, jeez.
So graphic.
But yeah, I was my jaw dropped. I was I was like, this is Game of Thrones. This is exactly what this show is supposed to be.
And then later at the end of the episode, Alicent's little prayer before the dinner, she says, and may the stranger take Vaemon's, soul, and it just cuts to Daemon, and he's just like, like, it's literally like been 6 hours since he decapitated this guy, and he's just laughing about it to himself. Like, once again, by the way, another murder done in front of a lot of people, just seemingly with no consequences. We had Kristen Cole killing Joffrey a few weeks back, and now he's the seems to be the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. And now we have Daemon just cutting down a Lord of the Realm. Actually, you know what? No, screw Vaemond. He was not a Lord. Corlys is still the Lord, so Vaemond's nobody.
I'm assuming they figure Corlys is dead, right? Like he's probably...
I think he was still. I think what they said was that he was still on a boat back from the Stepstones. Right. So I think they said that the Maesters are with him. So I will say the vibe I picked up from another review I listened to who had read the books, they didn't spoil anything, but it sounds like my guess is he will survive. Because I think that if he was gonna die, I think they would have told us in this episode. Like, I don't think they're gonna be like, the next week's episode is just gonna be like, the king is dead. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Oh, Corlys died. You know what I mean? Like, I think it'll be, if they didn't tell us in this episode, I think it's probably gonna be that he's gonna maybe come back in the finale or something. Or I could be totally wrong. Once again, I had no idea that this was gonna be when Viserys was gonna go. I had no idea about Harwin Strong. I'm trying to stay as in the dark on these things as possible. Other than Rhaenyra's fate, which Joffrey Baratheon lovingly fully spoils in season 4, which is, was great. Trying to block that out of my memory still, but whatever.
Thanks, Joffrey.
Exactly. But absolutely incredible episode for me. And then again, the dinner scene and then the end scene and his death, all of which we've, talked about. But any other little moments or anything you want to talk about before we wrap up? Or anything I'm forgetting?
One quick question. Who was who's the one girl that like stands up and says in the dinner scene? Who's the one like blonde girl that stands up? I feel like I've never seen
Helena.
her before.
That's Alicent and Viserys' daughter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was like
Aegon's,
she like stood up. I was like,
Aegon's sister and wife.
Gotcha. And one other thing I'll say is I did like the back and forth between the kids. Obviously, Aemond's still very butthurt about him losing his eye. I understand.
Absolutely.
I get it.
Did you catch it before it popped off the roasted pig?
I saw that on TikTok. Yeah. I go, oh, that's a good one. I didn't catch it. I've seen Aemon, Daemon gonna have some sort of face-off. It seems they seem to really be against each other.
Yeah, I really am trying to stay away from things, but I do get that general sense. I've seen a lot of.
They also look similar.
Yeah, I think very much. Like Casterly Talk, which is a great podcast. If anybody wants a Game of Thrones podcast, it's hosted by Ken Knapsack, and every week he's got different people on and everything, but he talks. Mainly Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, but he is doing Rings of Power as well. But on the episode, he talked about how Aemond, as much as he is against Rhaenyra and Daemon and everything, that he really is basing, a lot of what he wants to be on his idea and perception of Daemon, of this, rogue prince, badass that we've seen in the earlier episodes. It makes me even think maybe a lot of what we saw in young Daemon was to set up seeing those same things in Aemond, because I think that he is a very good, mirror to Daemon. We even get a little tiny face-off in this when Daemon, steps in front of Jace and Luke, and basically steps to Aemond and is like, yeah, that's right. And Aemond backs off because he's not quite ready to handle Daemon just yet. But yeah, I do get the vibe that something's gonna go down with the two of them at some point.
Yeah. Like you said, really solid episode. Excited to see the season finale, and can't wait for season 2. I don't know when that's going to be. I don't think they've announced, when it's going to production or anything, but
yeah, I guess unfortunately, just the way things are, probably 2024. I highly doubt we're gonna get this in 2023, which sucks so much. But if reports are true, maybe we'll get a different Game of Thrones show between now and then. If reports are true, again, still nothing confirmed at all about that show. But when it is confirmed, you will be sure to hear it from us. So guys, that'll do it for our review of episode 8 of House of the Dragon.